If you've ever felt that low burn in your stomach after eating, the bloating that won't quit, or that vague sense that something inside you is irritated and inflamed, this is going to matter to you. Because there's a single cup of a drink made from one of the cheapest vegetables at the grocery store that may do more to calm inflammation in your digestive tract than you'd ever expect. Not a supplement, not a pill, not something exotic, just 1 cup a day. And the reason it works isn't hype. It's been studied for decades, going all the way back to clinical research from the 1940s. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what this drink is, the 4 reasons it calms an inflamed gut, and exactly how to make it at home. Let's start with what's actually happening inside you. Your digestive tract, from your esophagus all the way down through your stomach and intestines, is lined with a delicate layer of tissue. That lining does 2 jobs at once. It has to be tough enough to handle acid, enzymes, and rough food, and at the same time it has to stay selectively open, letting nutrients through while keeping everything else out. When that lining gets irritated, inflamed, or worn thin, things start to go wrong. You feel it as burning, cramping, bloating, reflux, or that heavy, uncomfortable fullness that lingers long after a meal. And chronic inflammation in the gut sits underneath a whole list of conditions people struggle with every day: gastritis, irritation in the esophagus, stomach and intestinal ulcers, hiatal hernias, diverticulitis, and inflammatory bowel conditions like Crohn's. Different names, different locations, but the common thread is the same: an irritated, inflamed lining that needs to calm down and rebuild. So the real question is, how do you actually help it heal? Here's where a lot of people get stuck. When the gut is inflamed, the common move is to reach for something that shuts symptoms down. Acid blockers, or in some cases antibiotics aimed at an infection. And sometimes those have a place, but there's a catch. Many of these approaches treat your gut like a battlefield to be cleared, not a garden to be tended. Antibiotics, for example, don't carefully pick out one troublemaker. They sweep through, knocking back the trillions of beneficial bacteria you actually depend on for digestion, immunity, and a healthy gut lining. You can end up trading one problem for another, with a gut that's emptier and more fragile than before. So what if, instead of sterilizing the place, you could feed and rebuild it? What if you could calm the inflammation, strengthen the lining, and support the good bacteria all at the same time with something you can make in your own kitchen? That's exactly where this 1 cup comes in. The drink is fresh, raw cabbage juice. That's it. Plain green or red cabbage, run through a juicer or blended and strained, 1 cup a day. I know it doesn't sound like much. Cabbage is cheap, it's everywhere, and most people walk right past it. But that humble head of cabbage is one of the most underrated things you can put in your body when your gut is inflamed. And this isn't folk wisdom I'm pulling out of thin air. Raw cabbage juice was put through real clinical research more than 70 years ago, with results that surprised the doctors running the studies. So let's break down the 4 reasons it works, because once you understand the mechanism, you'll see why 1 cup can do so much. The first reason is a compound nicknamed vitamin U. Don't let the name fool you, it's not a true vitamin. The U stands for ulcer, and the story behind it is fascinating. Back in the late 1940s, a physician at Stanford named Garnett Chaney noticed something strange. Patients with painful stomach and intestinal ulcers seemed to heal far faster when they drank fresh cabbage juice. So he tested it. In a series of studies through the 1940s and 50s, he had ulcer patients drink fresh raw cabbage juice every day. The results were striking. Ulcers that typically took more than a month to heal with the standard treatments of that era were healing in roughly a week to 10 days on cabbage juice. Patients reported their pain easing within just a few days. Chaney credited a compound in the juice he called vitamin U, what we now know as a substance called S-methylmethionine. Its job is to help protect and rebuild the mucus lining of your stomach and intestines, the very barrier that gets stripped away when your gut is inflamed. Think of it like patching and recoating a wall that's had its protective paint scraped off. That's the first layer of what makes this cup so powerful. It doesn't just soothe, it helps the lining physically repair itself. The second reason is where it gets even more interesting, and it's the one most people have never heard of. When you chop, crush, or chew raw cabbage, it releases a compound called sulforaphane. And sulforaphane is something of a quiet powerhouse. Instead of acting like a drug that forces a single effect, it works more like a switch. It flips on your body's own internal defense system, a pathway called NRF2, which then turns up your natural antioxidant and anti-inflammatory machinery. In other words, it tells your own cells to protect and calm themselves. Researchers have found that sulforaphane lowers the inflammatory signals that drive irritation in the gut lining. But here's the part that really matters for an inflamed stomach. Sulforaphane has been shown to fight H. pylori, a bacteria that's behind a huge number of ulcers and chronic gastritis cases. Studies have found it can knock back this bacteria, even strains that have become resistant to conventional antibiotics, while calming the inflammation it causes. And there's a detail here worth pausing on. Sulforaphane isn't sitting ready-made inside the cabbage. It's locked away in a precursor, and it only gets released when you physically break the leaves apart. That's the whole reason raw, juiced, or blended cabbage matters so much. The act of crushing it is what activates this compound in the first place. So that single cup is doing double duty. It dials up your own anti-inflammatory defenses, and it goes after one of the most common hidden causes of an irritated gut. And it does all of that without wiping out the good bacteria along the way. The third reason is simpler, but don't underestimate it. Raw cabbage is a genuinely good source of vitamin C, and that matters for an inflamed gut in two specific ways. First, vitamin C is one of your body's frontline antioxidants. When tissue is inflamed, it's under a kind of chemical stress, and antioxidants help neutralize that damage so the area can settle down. Second, and this is the part people forget, vitamin C is essential for building collagen. Collagen is the structural protein your body uses to repair and rebuild tissue, including the tissue of your digestive lining. You simply can't properly rebuild a damaged gut wall without it. Here's the key though, vitamin C is fragile and heat destroys it. That's exactly why we're talking about raw juice and not cooked cabbage. Cook it down and you lose much of this benefit. Drink it raw and fresh, and you're delivering that antioxidant and tissue repair support straight to a lining that's crying out for it. The fourth reason ties everything together, an amino acid called L-glutamine. To understand why it matters, picture the lining of your intestines as a wall built from a single layer of cells, sealed together by what scientists call tight junctions, basically the mortar between the bricks. When that mortar holds firm, the wall keeps the bad stuff in your gut where it belongs and lets only nutrients through. But when the gut is inflamed and stressed, those seals loosen, the wall gets leaky, and particles that should never cross into your bloodstream start slipping through. That leakiness fuels even more inflammation, a vicious cycle. This is where glutamine comes in. It's the #1 fuel source for the cells that line your intestines. In fact, those cells run on glutamine more than almost anything else, using it to renew themselves and to keep those tight junctions sealed shut. When glutamine is plentiful, the wall stays strong and the seals stay tight. When it runs low, which happens under stress and inflammation, the barrier weakens. Cabbage naturally contains glutamine, so that Daily Cup is quietly delivering the exact fuel your gut lining needs to rebuild its wall and stop the leak at its source. Now step back and look at what those four things do together, because there's a bonus most people miss. Remember how the harsh approaches treat your gut like something to be cleared out? Cabbage juice does the opposite. It's a whole food full of plant fiber and compounds that feed the beneficial bacteria living in your gut. Those friendly microbes are a huge part of how your gut stays calm and your lining stays healthy, and when they're well fed, they produce their own protective anti-inflammatory compounds. So instead of sterilizing the soil, you're fertilizing it. You're calming inflammation, rebuilding the lining, and cultivating the very ecosystem that keeps your gut resilient over the long term. That's the difference between knocking your gut down and actually building it back up. And if you want an extra edge, reach for red cabbage. That deep purple color comes from extra antioxidants that add even more anti-inflammatory support to the very same cup. So how do you actually do this? It's simple. Take fresh cabbage, green or red, organic if you can, and run it through a juicer. No juicer? Chop it, blend it with a little water, and strain out the pulp. Aim for 1 cup a day. If your gut is more severely inflamed, some people work up to more, but 1 cup daily is a solid, sustainable starting point, and the title here isn't an accident. A few keys to get this right. First, make it fresh and drink it soon. The active compounds and the vitamin C start breaking down quickly, so this isn't something to juice by the gallon and store for a week. Second, the best time is on an empty stomach or right before a meal when it can coat and reach the lining directly. Third, start small. Cabbage juice is potent, and going too hard on day 1 can leave you gassy and bloated. Begin with half a cup, let your gut adjust, and build up from there. And let's be honest about the taste. Raw cabbage juice is strong. If you can't stand it straight, blend in a little carrot, cucumber, celery, a green apple, or a slice of fresh ginger to take the edge off. The goal is consistency. This works over days and weeks, not in a single glass. Now, a few honest words of caution, because no single food is right for everyone. If you have a thyroid condition, know that large amounts of raw cruciferous vegetables like cabbage can interfere with thyroid function in some people, so keep your portions sensible. Cabbage is also high in vitamin K, which affects blood clotting, so if you take a blood thinner, this is something to run by a healthcare professional first. And to be clear, everything I'm sharing here is general information, not a diagnosis or a treatment plan for your specific situation. If your symptoms are severe, persistent, or you notice anything alarming, that's a conversation for a qualified professional, not a glass of juice. Cabbage juice can be a powerful tool, but it works best alongside good judgment, not instead of it. So here's the bottom line. 1 cup of fresh, raw cabbage juice a day brings together 4 real, well-studied tools for an inflamed gut. Vitamin U to help rebuild the lining. Sulforaphane to switch on your own anti-inflammatory defenses and fight the bacteria behind ulcers. Vitamin C to power tissue repair. And glutamine to fuel your gut cells and seal the wall, all while feeding the good bacteria instead of wiping them out. It's cheap, it's simple, and it's been quietly proving itself for over 70 years. Now, cabbage juice is one powerful piece of the puzzle, but if your gut has been struggling for a while, if you're still bloated, still sluggish, still not going to the bathroom the way you should, there's something else you need to know about. Scientists have recently been studying an ancient superfood that's been used for over 8,000 years by billions of people around the world. And here's what's strange. It works even if you eat 0 fiber. In fact, thousands of men and women are using just 1 small pinch of this thing to empty their bowels twice as fast and drop up to 10 pounds of toxic buildup that's been sitting in their intestines for years. No restrictive diets, no expensive probiotics, no medications. I put together a short presentation that walks you through exactly what this is, how it works, and how to use it. It's eye-opening, especially if you've already tried everything and nothing has stuck. To watch it, just point your phone's camera at the QR code on the screen right now. You'll go straight to the full presentation. There's also a link pinned in the comments below. You can tap that too. Go check it out. I think it's going to change the way you think about your gut health entirely. Your gut spends every single day working for you, breaking down everything you eat and standing guard between the outside world and your bloodstream. A few minutes and 1 cup is a small thing to give back. Start small, stay consistent, and give your digestive system the raw materials it's been asking for.